Alright, it's Saturday. I actually went a little bit longer than I originally had planned to. I planned to take these out on Thursday, but life happens, so it went a little bit longer. It's kind of a good thing. I want to take a quick look, show you the slurry has thickened a good bit, and the rocks are tumbling a little slower now, so I'm going to show you that real quick. They're still tumbling. So I think they would have been fine. But now we're basically at the cleanup point where we got to get them ready to move on to the next stage. So one aspect of that which I have found, and I've done this the times I've done it and it's worked well for me, is we're going to add a little bit of Dawn dishwashing liquid. Okay, put a little bit of that in, and I'm going to turn it back on. I'm going to let it run for about 15 more minutes. And then we'll have to take them outside and clean them off for the next step. So I'll be back in about 15 minutes, which on YouTube will take next to no time at all. Okay, we're back, and if you watched the first video, I took out that inner nut that holds this whole assembly onto the tumbler and just picked the whole thing up and brought it outside. If you look now, it's full. It's got foam all through it. After putting in the Dawn dishwashing liquid, that happens, but I'm told that helps to get the slurry off the rocks, which is actually pretty thick now. I'm going to show you how I do this, but I'm going to tell you it takes a long time. I don't think I want to have a half-hour long video of you watching me do this, so I'll show you the process, then I'll cut it off, and we'll pick it up again inside when we're moving on to the next step. So here's how I do it. I take a strainer and I grab some rocks and I put them in the strainer, and I'm going to get ceramic media too. That's fine. It all gets rinsed off. I get a fair amount in here. Okay. I take the hose, clean off my hand a little bit, and clean off the rocks. If you put too much in at one time, you can't get all the slurry off of it, and then you have to start over because we got to get it all off before we move on to the next round. Okay. I hit it from the bottom too. Do a little bit of that, and I get it off. Okay, then I have the little blue bucket here with water in it. I dump it all into the bucket, and I start again. And when you get to the bottom, sometimes you can feel that there's grit like stuck to the bottom. That tells me that I let it go a little too long or get a little too thick. This time I'm not feeling that. I must have done pretty well this time. But see, it's messy. I'm doing this outside because you don't want this stuff going down your drain. It will plug up your drain, which would ruin your day. So I don't want to let that happen. Yep. Okay, I can tell you to unload this entire load, it's going to take a little while. So basically I'm going to go ahead and probably cut the camera off, and I'll be back in just a little bit when I've got them all cleaned off. And then after we clean them off, I have to rinse out the bowl. I've got like a toilet bowl scrubber that has never been used on a toilet. And I use that to clean out the bowl, because we got to get all the grit out, because we're moving on to a lighter grit, and if we allow cross-contamination, it'll screw up our next step. So we will be back in just a little bit. I'm going to finish cleaning these off, and then we'll pick it up from there. Okay, now it's time for the toothbrush treatment, because basically I've rinsed them off real well, I've cleaned the bowl out, and now I'm looking for stuff like this. Let me see if I can get close enough that that'll focus. This little spot right there, That's where it didn't rinse off. When I do that, you can see I still had slurry on this rock. And we're dead serious. Can't have that going into the next round. So I take a toothbrush and I clean them off. And this takes a long time. I was outside for probably another 10 minutes after I turned off the video. Okay, and now I'm probably going to spend 10 or 15 more minutes here toothbrushing these individual rocks. But I'm not kidding. If I take the step 1 slurry into the next round, it's going to mess it up. So I look at it this way. Do I want to spend 25 minutes now, or do I want to waste 2 or 3 days on the next step? So basically that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be going through the rest of the rocks, then I'll clean off the bowl even better. I even clean the outside. I'm probably going overboard on that. And then I'll start up the next round. I'm going to do like I did before, and I'm going to kind of stop, and we'll bring the video back when I'm ready to go. I don't think anybody wants to watch 15 minutes of me toothbrushing rocks. Alright, we're back. The rocks have all been toothbrushed off, cleaned off, placed into the tumbler. As clean as I can get them. And now we're back to the kind of the same place we were on the first video, where I've got to add the new grit. This time we're using pre-polish. I've pre-measured it. It's 4 ounces this time, so it's half what it was before. And we've got to do the same thing we did before, where we're going to try to get a slurry going. I actually videoed, in the last video I talked about how I was trying to get them covered with gray, and I couldn't do that fast enough, you know, that it showed up the beginning. So I did make a video later on afterwards where I showed the slurry and what it looked like, and I'm going to probably cut that in right about here. Alright, I'm back. It's about a day after I started this batch. It's Tuesday evening now. We started it on Monday evening. Wanted to show you that we now have, as I said, the rocks are completely coated. I also wanted to point out, I think that as much as I talked about not putting in too much water, I've put in too much water. But the rocks are coated, so basically I'm just going to not add any water, and I'm going to let it thicken itself up, but I got to keep an eye on it so that I don't end up with my rocks stuck to the bottom. I did want to show also that after it gets going, how much better the rocks tumble. So take a look at how they move now. Alright, I'm going to add this into the second video, so this is probably a little aside, and let's go back to we're probably getting these rocks ready for the next step, pre-polish. Alright, so that's what the slurry is supposed to look like. You're not going to get that in the first 10 or 15 minutes, but basically that's eventually what it's going to get to. And once again, you're trying to find that balance where it's thick enough that it sticks to the rocks, but thin enough that it doesn't, you know, stick your rocks to the bottom of the tumbler. So once again, we're going to be working on that. We got to bolt our bowl down. Okay, and then we will turn on. The rocks are still relatively wet, which is what I try to do with them. I'm going to use a wrench again, but the wrench, I'm just going to tighten it down. I'm not really going to torque on it because that would probably mess up my bowl, and that would be an expensive mistake. Alright. Did want to show, there was one rock I pulled out. Let me see if I can get that to focus. If you can see, there were several holes in this rock that have grit in them right there, and I can't get that grit off. So basically I'm pulling it out because I don't want that grit in the next step, and that would mess things up. So we're going to pull it out, and I'm going to start now with trying to add the grit, and we'll see how the rocks are tumbling. Alright, that was kind of neat. I enjoy that part of it. You probably saw they didn't start out moving too well, but then as I added the grit, they sort of, you could hear the tone of it change, and they started moving a little better. In the first step, I used small ceramic media, and I noticed it was sticking to the inside wall of the tumbler, which means it probably wasn't doing me any good. So I'm going to switch over. On this step, I'm going to add in a little larger ceramic media. You see these are bigger. They should not stick to the wall. See if that'll help us out a little bit. Alright, I think we're ready to go. It looks pretty good to me. Looks like it's off to a good start. I'll check it again in a couple of hours just to make sure. This is step 2 for a vibratory. This is the pre-polish. I'm going to probably run this for 2 days. Okay, and at the end of 2 days, we'll move on to the polish. The ceramic media, I want it in there because I do think it helps, and it also can help cushion the rocks. One of the problems we may have when I get done is if you have white along the edges of your rocks. Sometimes that is that the rocks are banging against each other too much, and they basically are scarring each other as you're doing the tumbling. The ceramic media can help cushion it. It's non-abrasive, so it shouldn't scratch the rocks, and hopefully cushion the rocks a little bit so we get some better results. So there we go. This is step 2. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you will come along and watch step 3, the next step, in about 2 days. Thank you.